Happy Halloween, everybody. Welcome into Morning Jocks. Conrad Van Order, Damian Mitchell with you here. You can only say that once a year, Damian. Only once a year do you get to start a show
I
like that.
completely forgot. I really did.
Glad to see you're in the holiday spirit, Damian.
Nah, I mean with the weather the way it has been, I'm a big Christmas guy. So I've been getting ready, drinking hot chocolate. I get Thanksgiving its proper week, but everything else is gearing towards Christmas.
Yeah, I mean, I'll admit, I definitely, when I woke up this morning and went outside, it was like, man, is it Halloween or it feels like maybe it'd be a little closer to Christmas.
Yeah,
than
the
it
weather
is.
outside is frightful. That's what it was.
Yes, it is. Yeah, it's the coldest it's been in quite some time. That was good. I wasn't expecting that. That was a good play on words there. But yeah, it's a little chilly out there this morning. So if you are listening to us from the wonderful confines of your hopefully heated house, be careful when you go outside because yeah, it's really really cold out there. But it is Halloween, so happy Halloween to everybody. I'm sure a lot of people have some fun plans for over the weekend. Maybe you already did your Halloween celebrations, parties, all that good stuff earlier in the week. But hope everyone enjoys the holiday and, trick or treating, all that good stuff that comes along with it. And it's crazy to think that tomorrow, when we are watching college football, it'll be the start of November. So this is crunch time. We've officially made it into the, I guess, what you can call the home stretch of the college football season, as a lot of things left to be decided in this college football playoff race. And it's been one of the crazier seasons of college football than I could remember in my lifetime so far this year. And I would think that the next month would be no different. But it is Final Score Friday, in addition to it being Halloween. And if you're new to the program, this is how we like to do things. You send in your final scores to us on the Courtesy GMC text line, 205-834-9450. Whatever games it is that you are most excited for this weekend. Obviously, we're going to spend a lot of time with Auburn and Kentucky. But I don't know. Maybe you're a big Houston fan and you just really can't wait to see how they look against West Virginia tomorrow at 11 a.m. and you want to send in a final score prediction for that. You can do that. You can absolutely do that. Maybe you're really excited for Buffalo and Bowling Green. You can send that one in too.
Yeah, the Florida-Georgia line game.
That's a game that's not what they call it, but that's
what is it called?
The world's largest outdoor cocktail party.
Oh, they still call it that?
Well, you're not supposed to call it that, but
that's why they called it. That's why they renamed it the Florida-Georgia line game.
Mm-hmm.
Makes sense.
Mm-hmm. I'm sure that's why that's what they call it there very affectionately. But yeah, we love to hear from you on Final Score Fridays. Get your score predictions for the big games coming up over the course of the weekend. And of course, coming up here at around 6:30, me and Damien will deliver you our picks for the biggest games that are coming up this weekend. But unfortunately, we do have to start the show like this, and I'm sure some of you, or at least those of you that are affected by this, probably already aware. If you're not already aware, this is probably going to ruin your Friday, and you're going to have to make some new plans for the weekend. And that deal is the fact that YouTube TV and Disney are currently in a dispute. And as of roughly 11 p.m. Central Time last night, Disney and ABC, which that would include ESPN, is no longer available on YouTube TV. So if you were paying attention over the last couple of days, you saw YouTube, you saw ESPN. I saw, I think Scott Van Pelt from his personal account, tweeted out like a video essentially saying, hey, you need to go and, we're not going to be on YouTube TV this weekend if you don't go and, call YouTube and complain essentially. And it's just a long line and one of those debates that we had. We had one earlier this year. We've had them last year. It happens every football season, it feels like. And ultimately, a deal always gets done, right? So the hope is that something will get done between now and tomorrow morning, because a lot of you, again, might not have access to college football if that's the case. And for example, if you have YouTube TV and this doesn't get resolved, you can't watch the Auburn game tomorrow. You're going to have to go figure out or go out to a public establishment or go to a friend's house that has cable or some other streaming service potentially to get access to that game. So there are 10 million YouTube TV subscribers, and I'm willing to bet about 9.9 million of them are not happy as of this morning. So just something to keep an eye on if you're a YouTube TV subscriber, that you're going to need to maybe make some accommodations so that you can enjoy college football coming up this weekend. That's also going to include some NFL action, Monday Night Football. So again, a lot on the line here as YouTube TV and Disney try to get this thing worked out, but certainly not what we want to hear going into a pivotal weekend of the college football season. So that's your update on everything going on there. But we did have football going on last night, and we had both NFL and a couple of college games. So on the NFL front, oh man, it's not a good time to be a member of the Miami Dolphins. As the Baltimore Ravens cruise past them to a score of 28-6. And the worst part about it is, I mean, I'll be honest, I stopped watching in the third quarter because I just couldn't do it anymore. It's painful to watch. The Dolphins should have, I'm not going to say they should have won that game, but they certainly in the second half should have been leading that game. I mean, they had multiple opportunities. You had a fumble early on in the game that gave the Ravens the ball at the Dolphins' 10-yard line, so they get an easy touchdown. They get an easy touchdown off of that. They had another fumble late. Tua ended up throwing an interception later. But you had multiple times on, short fourth down conversions where clearly Tua and the receivers or Achane or whoever are just on different pages. And Mike McDaniel was not happy last night. There were multiple times where Miami should have converted and continue to drive. And there was just miscommunication. Guys don't know what the play call is. They don't know where they're supposed to run. Yep. They don't know what routes to run. Or they're not finishing their routes. And it's an ugly look right now. It's one of those teams where you watch them play a football game and you just go, oh, it's that kind of year. Like everything that could go wrong went wrong for the Dolphins last night. And it's been honestly pretty pathetic what they put on the field this year. So the Ravens, they're now 3-5 after a very disappointing start to their season. But Lamar Jackson, he goes for 4 touchdowns last night. Derrick Henry has 119 rushing yards on 19 carries, and the Ravens doing what the Ravens should have done to a very bad team last night in the Dolphins. But yeah, it's pretty ugly if you're a Miami fan.
Yeah, I really just watched the game yesterday for fantasy purposes. I like the volume in which Devon Achane does touch the ball, whether whether they throw it to him a little bit, because if you are in PPR leagues, even though swing passes help.
And he's been a monster this year.
Yeah, the yardage that you get afterwards, we will accept them. Miami, I mean, I'm saying this as a Titans fan, but they're in that battle for the number 1 overall pick with us. But at least we have, we can hang our hat on. We also had a bad coach, and we have a rookie quarterback with no pieces around him. So I don't really know what's up with Miami because you've got talent everywhere. You've got a lot of speed. It just does not translate to winning football at any level.
No, it does not. And there's just a lot of people out there when you watch that team, they just don't look like a team that really wants to be out there.
At all.
At this point, I mean, I get it. And I mean, yeah, it's just a mess all around. So Ravens, they get a big win last night over the Dolphins there on Thursday Night Football. But how about the college ranks? Because there was one game last night that I think maybe more people were paying attention to than you would think. But the first game of the night, you had Marshall and Coastal Carolina there in a Sun Belt matchup. Coastal, they get a 44-27 win, so they're now 4-1 in the Sun Belt there. So a good win there for the Shanties. But the other game you had going on was in the American, and you had UTSA hosting Tulane. And you might say, well, okay, I'm sure that was a fine game, but why are people interested in that? Well, because John Sumrall is the head coach at Tulane, and if you've been paying attention, he has been a very popular name when it comes to the college football coaching carousel. So I think there were probably some people last night that said, hey, this Ravens-Dolphins game's kind of getting out of hand. Let me go. I'm hearing a lot about this John Sumrall guy. Let me go see what his team's all about. Let me go see what he's all about. Well, unfortunately for him, Jeff Traylor and the Roadrunners had a different plan last night. At one point, it was 31-6 UTSA in the first half. They ultimately would go on to win 48-26. So Tulane making it, I mean, they were consistent last night. You scored 6, 6, 7, 7 in terms of how many points you scored per quarter. So, I mean,
you got one.
That's consistency, right? You know what you're going to get with him. But yeah, certainly not a great opportunity. But if you listen to Three-Man Front yesterday, and unfortunately, I know Landrum had the great stat, and I can't remember exactly what it was, but we were talking about Jeff Traylor, and essentially this guy does not lose when he plays conference games at home, and you saw that come to fruition last night because UTSA 3-4 going into the game versus Tulane, who was 6-1. And I mean, that was a big loss for Tulane, right? Because they were trending to potentially be that group of 5 team in the college football playoff. That loss yesterday probably eliminates them from that conversation entirely, unless there's a lot of chaos. Now, I don't think that, I don't think it's like, oh, LSU's like, oh, we're not going to interview John Summerall now or anything like that. But I just think a lot of people would probably be interested in checking out Tulane yesterday. And UTSA kind of opened up a can of a little bit yesterday.
Yeah, if this was your first impression of John Summerall, this is not. This is not.
You would be like, what's all the hype? Yeah.
Yeah, this is not the representation of what he usually has. But no, Tulane was just absolutely just boat race up and down the field. It wasn't even close. UTSA could do no wrong offensively, and then defensively, Tulane just couldn't figure anything out. And I saw. Now I will say they had an absolute dime dropped by one of their receivers. They had like a little reverse pass. And he lets the play develop a little bit. He realizes, oh, snap, my receiver may be covered. And he's just like, well, he's down there somewhere. And he throws it towards the back of the end zone, and he drops it in a bucket. And it's, okay, well, you may have to dig into the bag of tricks the rest of the way to see if you can figure some things out. But, no, I think Tulane, yeah, that was essentially a playoff loss. Like, you kind of just need to figure that, USF, Memphis, they kind of have the inside track now, but now you have another loss, which, again, the only loss that you had was to Ole Miss, and we see what
You're
Ole
not
Miss
going to,
is.
yeah, that's
right.
fine.
They weren't going to punish you
No.
for that one. But I think having a loss the way that it looked against UTSA, you've pretty much eliminated yourself as far as playoff contention. You're going to need some help along the way.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right about that. And, yeah, not a great day for the Green Wave as they allow UTSA 523 yards of total offense for UTSA. Their quarterback, McCown, threw for 300. Listen, I mean, this stat line's crazy. 31 of 33. He missed 2 passes the entire game. 370 yards, 4 touchdowns. No turnovers. Pretty remarkable. And, I mean, you look at UTSA, they had 10 penalties for 116 yards. Didn't matter because they won the turnover battle 4-0. You can't do that if you're Tulane. And it's going to be hard-pressed to find a game where you turn the ball over 4 times, the opponent doesn't turn the ball over, and you win. So that kind of tells you a little bit of the tail of the tape there for the Green Wave yesterday as UTSA gets a big win there in American Conference action. So that's a little recap of everything you need to know from last night. Again, if you're just now joining us and you have YouTube TV, just be ready to potentially have to make some changes here as they're in a dispute with Disney and ESPN. And I know some of you are already sending in some comments on that on the text line. But, of course, it is a happy Halloween and a Final Score Friday, so we'd love to hear from you. 205-834-9450, your final score predictions for the weekend. We'll get to some of those coming up next. But things have somehow gotten even worse in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. Yeah, I know. There's been some major developments with LSU, their coaching search, and the future of that football program. We'll tell you everything you need to know next here on JOX. Well, welcome back into Morning Jocks. Conrad and Damian with you until 7 o'clock, when we will hand you off to McElroy and Kublick in the morning. Happy Halloween, everybody. Hope everyone has an exciting weekend ahead. And, of course, tomorrow you'll be accounted for because you're probably going to be watching college football. And we can't wait for another great weekend of college football. And I think everyone, at least in this state, right, you got to be happy, right? Both teams, I mean, Alabama's on bye, but both teams coming off of a win, right? If you're UAB, you got to feel optimistic moving forward with Mortensen there at the helm. See if they can get another upset tomorrow against UConn. Jacksonville State won the other night. Like, it's a good time if you're a college football fan in the state of Alabama. However, if you're a college football fan in the state of Louisiana, maybe not so much. But we'll get to that in a second because we do want to get to some of your text here quickly. Like Jimmy, who chimes in on the courtesy GMC text line and says, I didn't realize the CEO of YouTube TV was an Auburn fan because, let's be honest, I don't think they want anybody to have to watch that abomination of a football team on TV.
Ouch.
I just read them.
Ouch.
Y'all text them in, and we just...
It's a little spooky here on Halloween.
It is. Teddy from Birmingham, he chimes in with some score predictions. He's going to go Georgia 38, Florida 14. He's got Tennessee knocking off Oklahoma 42-35.
Okay.
And he's got Texas he says Texas wins on a walk-off field goal 31-28 over Vanderbilt and Diego Pavia. So we will see about that. And then Jamie chimes in. He says his score predictions for the weekend, Ohio State, Penn State. He has Ohio State 41-17 in that one. He likes Kentucky 28, Auburn 24.
Oh, boy.
That'll be an interesting week if that happens.
Boy.
And then he has Tennessee and Oklahoma. This would be a great game. Tennessee 31, Oklahoma 30.
Okay. Be
a nice win there for the Volunteers. So you can do just like Jamie did and others and text in your score predictions 205-834-9450 on the courtesy GMC text line, and we will get to more of those as we continue on throughout the show. But as I told you, things going from bad to worse for Louisiana State University football right now, as about everything that can change has changed. And so maybe some people, right, are looking at this as a good thing, and they're tired of Scott Woodward, and they're tired of Brian Kelly, and they're ready for a new page. But I do think the way, and we played some of the governor's audio, Governor Jeff Landry, for you yesterday, it feels like we've gone very quickly from, oh, well, this is entertaining to, oh, this is messy and like red flag, red flag, red flag, red flag, just kind of popping up all over this situation. So the big news, the big development last night, though, was that LSU and athletic director Scott Woodward have agreed to part ways. And so this is going to come, and again, it's funny because you had the governor talking about how concerned he is about, well, I don't want the taxpayers to have to pay this $53 million buyout for Brian Kelly, which, well, first off, that doesn't fall on the taxpayer, so that's just completely wrong. But secondly, it's, this concern over, I can't believe we're having to pay out all this money, and now you're going to have to tack on an extra $6.8 million to that because that's now what you owe Scott Woodward as he walks out the door there at LSU. So Executive Deputy Athletics Director Verge Asbury, it's a pretty cool name, not going to lie. He's going to be their interim AD down there in LSU after Woodward's departure. And Scott Woodward actually went on social media yesterday and kind of shared this, or he delivered this address to the LSU fans in his statement after it was announced that he was going to be parting ways with the program. And I'll read it for you. It says, "It is with a heavy heart, but also with my typical optimism that today is my last day serving as your director of athletics. I grew up a few miles from campus, attended Catholic high school, and enrolled at the university that would change my life in 1981. My 4 years as an LSU student were among the greatest of my life. My career took me into government and public relations before the opportunity to return to my alma mater in 2000 to lead external affairs for the university. Being back on campus each and every day was a true honor. My journey would take me to Seattle and College Station before finally returning home in 2019 to LSU in Baton Rouge. Others can recap or opine on my tenure and on my decisions over the last 6 years as director of athletics, but I will not. Rather, I'll focus on the absolute joy that LSU athletics brings to our state's residents and to the Baton Rouge community. I'll cherish the incredible relationships I've built with the university community and beyond our campus borders, and I will fondly remember the national and SEC championships for the joy that they brought to our student athletes, coaches, staff, community, and our incredible fans. Our university will always hold a special place in my heart, and I'll never be too far from LSU. And then he says that him and his family wish them nothing but the best moving forward. So that was the statement from LSU, former LSU AD, Scott Woodward, as they will now try to pick up the pieces of this, Damian, and move forward.
Yeah, kind of a cleaning house situation. And I guess when you have the governor of your whole entire state let you know that you're not going to be part of hiring the next coach, the writing's kind of on the wall. Like, okay, well, if it's coming from the politician side, okay, I guess I'm not in the safest of waters, I guess, to figure it all out. But I'm interested to see where LSU goes, and just the whole to do with it, because you got to pay out Brian Kelly, got to find a way to get the money for him to ensure that he is out the door and make sure he's paid on his way out. And now you got to have an athletic director that not only has to look over football, but the entire athletics department for LSU. And it's got to be somebody that's used to winning or knows what winning looks like, because the expectations at LSU, no matter the sport, is to compete for championships. And again, Scott Woodward in a short time, he saw that. He saw some championships along the way with every sport, with just about every sport. So I'm interested to see where LSU goes, but something tells me this is not going to be a fun experience for LSU fans around the world.
No, it's certainly going to be an interesting next couple of months as they, sort through all this. And, you have to, you need a new AD, you need a new head football coach, you need a new president. You don't have a university president, which is part of why the governor is maybe having to get as involved as he is. And look, I know there are a lot of people, I've seen a bunch of people that are, defending Scott Woodward. And I'll say this, right? I think the way that this has all gone down is certainly weird, and I think you could argue unprofessional at times from the governor of Louisiana, and I understand that. But I know there are a lot of people out there he won a national championship in women's basketball. He hired Kim Mulkey. He hired Coach Johnson of the baseball team, and they just won a World Series. Like, he made those hires, and he did, and he deserves credit for those hires. Those programs do not bring money into your athletic department. Like, LSU won a national championship in women's basketball, and they operated at a deficit. They lost money for the school, and they won a national championship a few years ago. Like, that stuff's great, but at the end of the day, if you're an athletics director, it's, can you nail the football hire, and then everything else we can kind of live if you don't hit that. But if you don't hit on the football hire and you hit on everything else, it doesn't matter, because those programs are great, but they don't bring money back into your school, and especially somewhere like Louisiana, where, you're it. Like, LSU is it for big-time college football in that state. And when it's not meeting the expectations and the standards of that program, people aren't going to be happy, and changes are going to be made, as we've seen, very drastically and very quickly, and maybe in somewhat of a reactionary state. So that's just the reality of the situation. If you think that he got done dirty, I think that's fair, but I saw a lot of people, man, you can't even win now. You hire national championship coaches and still get fired. Well, if you don't nail the football hire, no one else cares about the other hire. They're great, but they don't bring anything into the university, so they don't really care about them that much. Let's be honest about it. That's just the reality of the situation. So we'll see what direction LSU goes in next. Matt Moscona, wonderful radio host there in Baton Rouge, he kind of put out some names yesterday to keep in mind for the AD position, including Michael Alford at Florida State. You've got Josh Brooks at Georgia, who has ties to the state of Louisiana. Heath Schroyer at McNeese. And then Osbury, of course, who's the interim guy. And then you have Jay Artiguez, who's from southeastern Louisiana. So some names to keep an eye on there. And he notes that the ties to the state of Louisiana are going to be a big part of that hire and who ultimately lands the gig there for LSU. So great time for your bye week, right? Hopefully they can take their minds off of everything going on with the football program and move ahead, because it's a little volatile situation down there on the Bayou as it stands right now. But that's the latest, everything going on with LSU. I'm sure we'll be talking about this for weeks to come as they have to find a new head football coach. And I'm sure we're going to keep hearing interesting names pop up in that conversation. But it's time, finally, for our favorite part of the week. If you don't know how we do things here on Friday, me and Damian like to give you our picks for the biggest games of the weekend. And in addition to that, we get your picks on the Courtesy GMC text line because it's Final Score Friday. So 205-834-9450. Keep sending in your score predictions for the weekend. And when we come back, me and Damian going to give you our picks for the weekend. Keep it locked right here on Morning Jocks. All righty, you know what time it is. When you hear that music, it is time for Damian and I to make our picks here on Morning Jocks. Welcome in to the Friday edition of the show, a Halloween edition of Morning Jocks, and hope everyone has a fun weekend and bundle up because it's also very, very chilly outside. So I know we have a lot of people tuning in at 6:30. So before we get to our picks, it's always nice to remind you that if you missed the early parts of the show, just a reminder, trying to give, I want as many people to know this as possible so that they're not caught off guard tomorrow. If you have YouTube TV, right now, currently, you cannot watch ESPN or ABC on there. So that will affect your ability to watch things like the Auburn and Kentucky game tomorrow and a number of other college football games. So just, again, if that's you, so, I hate to be the bearer of bad news at 6:30 on a Friday morning, but just want everybody to be aware of that so you can make the necessary preparation so that you can watch your favorite team tomorrow if you are one of the 10 million YouTube TV subscribers. I know there are a lot of them that listen to the show. All right, now let's get to our picks, our favorite segment of the week, Damian. We look forward to this all week long, and we've got 6 fantastic games coming up that we're going to give you our thoughts on. So again, I'm going to say it every week because we keep getting them every week. The 11 a.m. kickoffs in the SEC have been fantastic this season. Absolutely incredible. And they continue yet again on ABC tomorrow. 11 a.m. Vanderbilt on the road in Austin, Texas, taking on the Longhorns, who may or may not be with Arch Manning, who's in concussion protocol, and we'll see if he's going to be able to go for the Longhorns. But nonetheless, Texas, this line has moved, actually. So yesterday, I believe it was Texas 1.5. Now I'm looking at Texas -3.5. I'm just telling you what I see. And the over-under is listed at 46.5 for this one. I feel very similar to this game that I did last week. Last week, not the prettiest win in the world, but you got to win over a ranked opponent in Missouri. Very unfortunate that it came alongside a very bad injury for Bo Pribula. But this week now, if you're Vanderbilt, right, it just feels like they're on a mission. And the fact that they've made it this far and they feel like they're this close to actually making a college football playoff, it's hard for me not to ride with Diego Pavia and the Commodores. So, and especially if it's 3.5. So even if they lose by a field goal, I'm still going to get the cover. I think Vanderbilt wins this game outright, though. So yeah, give me Vanderbilt and the points all day long. But I think Vanderbilt just, honestly, I think they're the better team this year than Texas is. So give me the doors.
Yeah, now I'm right there with you. I think Vanderbilt is the better team. Texas is getting the luck of being at home. I don't know how whether Arch plays or not, it still doesn't feel like Texas is completely there. Vanderbilt knows exactly who they are, and if they want to make this just an old-fashioned bar fight, Vanderbilt's equipped. And I think Vanderbilt is not afraid of the moment. Even with Diego Pavia not having statistically one of the better performances, he still makes plays.
Mm-hmm.
He makes plays. It doesn't really matter.
All he does is win games, man.
Yeah, and I think that sets well for what Vanderbilt believes is something that's a little bit of a Cinderella story of this 2025 season. I think they keep it rolling. I think they win.
Who do you think the leading rusher is going to be in this match, or is going into this matchup for these two teams?
Cedric Alexander.
It's Diego Pavia.
Oh, wow.
He has the most rushing yards on either Vanderbilt or Texas team. He has 85 carries for 458 yards and 5 touchdowns. I just thought that was interesting.
Yeah.
I
thought Cedric the Entertainer. Cedric Alexander was toting that thing a little bit more. Thought he had more yards than that.
Pavia's doing his thing, man. All right, moving on to 2:30 and the game that Damian has affectionately renamed the Florida-Georgia line game. And I guess we'll call it that for today.
Attaboy.
But number 5, Georgia, they are going to take on the Florida Gators in Jacksonville, of course, as is tradition there in that rivalry. But Georgia right now, only a 7.5-point favorite on a neutral site. The total is listed at 50.5 going into this one. This one, I'll be honest, this one's a little tough because I could see this being a game where, again, it's a rivalry game with Florida. Maybe this is like kind of their last like big, their big surge for the season where they go and try to pull off a major upset and really upset the apple cart in the college football playoff race. But I think Georgia's too good, man. I think Georgia's gotten better offensively as the season has progressed, and they're certainly susceptible on defense, right? I could see Florida keeping this game interesting, but I think Georgia's certainly the better team. So, I mean, if I had to go one way or the other, I definitely like Georgia to win the game, and 7.5 might be a little rich for my blood, but it's Kirby. I give him the benefit of the doubt.
Yeah, last year Florida was extremely competitive in this game.
DJ Lagway didn't get hurt last year. I think they won.
Yeah.
They would win. Yeah.
And I don't think Georgia's going to be caught by surprise again. I think that Georgia right now, bye week was probably needed. last week and kind of just knocking off some rust, and now I think they're ready to see. I'm interested to see how Georgia finishes up the month of November, and I think it starts with an absolute obliteration of Florida this weekend. I think Florida can keep it close early, but I think Georgia just has a little bit more juice, a little bit more fire. I think they win comfortably.
So me and Damian both like the Bulldogs there, and that one, Damian likes Georgia big over the Florida Gators. All right, at 3 o'clock over on the SEC Network, you've got a battle of winless teams in SEC play, Mississippi State and Arkansas. So how about this? This is a fun stat. Arkansas's last SEC win was last season when they beat Mississippi State. Mississippi State's last SEC win was 2 years ago when they beat Arkansas. So one of these teams is going to snap their losing streak in SEC play. And it's going to be, the game is in Fayetteville. Arkansas is a 5.5-point favorite. I just feel, this one's tough. I'll be honest. I mean, I wouldn't put money on it, but if I had to give you a lean, it feels like eventually Mississippi State's got to win one of these games, right? Like they have been so close. Not to steal Hugh Freeze's favorite word from him, but they've been so close in so many games this year. And against better competition than this, it feels to me like maybe this is the weekend they finally are able to break through, get that first SEC win of the season. Because it just feels like they've got that monkey on their back right now, and they just can't shake it off. And so I think maybe Arkansas, coming off that horrible fourth quarter against Auburn, maybe they're reeling a little bit. And, Mississippi State ticked off after another disappointing loss. So, yeah, give me Mississippi State. I think they pull off the upset.
I'm with you. This game may be 75-68. What's the total? Is it
65
65
and a half.
It's crazy as it may seem. I'd lean the over because I think Mississippi State, one, their offense is very high potent, and Arkansas can't stop a nosebleed defensively. Now, what Taylor Green shows up for Arkansas through 3 quarters of last week, it's okay, you can win with this. And then the fourth quarter happened, and it's okay, now you see why Arkansas is the way that they are. But I think Mississippi State squeaks this one by because you're 2 wounded teams, but Mississippi State, they're losing because of lack of guys, just dudes, just take over guys.
Yeah.
And I think Arkansas, even with the guys that they have, they can't stop anybody. So it's okay, we may be able to score 40 to 50 points, but it still won't be enough because our defense is going to, leave us out to dry. And I think Mississippi State, they can just find one stop that kind of sets them up because I do think, their offense and the way that they run it, they're going to have some home runs, and I feel like they've hit a lot of those this season as opposed to last season. They were just trying to figure it all out. So I think Mississippi State gets their first SEC win in a couple years, and it's a familiar foe in Arkansas.
All right, now we move into the later slate of games, your 6 and 6:30 matchups. At 6 o'clock on ESPN, South Carolina, they're heading to Oxford, Mississippi to take on Ole Miss. Ole Miss, a 12.5-point favorite, 55.5 is the total. And, I feel like this one, I know some people might think that Ole Miss, you just got a big road win. Maybe you're set up to lay a bit of an egg in this matchup. But I think for Ole Miss, there's a couple of things, right? You had your close call against Washington State a couple of weeks ago, right? So you've already played with fire a little bit. Maybe you throw the Kentucky game earlier into that mix as well. But you're playing at home. You've got a night game, which we know Lane Kiffin is always unhappy because he doesn't get enough night games. So I think that works in your favor. But then I also think for South Carolina, I know a lot of people will go, well, what if they, do what they did against Alabama last week? And they very well could do that. I just feel like to be in the situation that they were, to have that lead, to be set up to go down the field and pull off that upset against Alabama, and to have that victory snatched away from you the way that it was, that's the kind of thing that when your team's already down, feels like it really starts to crush you, and it's like, oh, we can't, we just can't win, right? Like that's the mentality. We're just not meant to win games, and I feel like that might carry over for South Carolina. So I like Ole Miss big. I think this is a good spot for them. I think they take care of business big time.
Yeah, my Ole Miss Rebels, we need this one. We need the get right game, and I think South Carolina's kind of feeling a little bit of, I guess you say, remorse because they feel as though they were close against Alabama last week.
Yeah.
And they let that one get away there at the end. And now you got to follow that up with one of the best teams in the SEC as well in Ole Miss, and Ole Miss gets them at home. I mean, we laid belt to ass to them last year on the road in Columbia. Now we get them at home. I think Trinidad Chambliss has a big game. I don't see how South Carolina could really make this a ball game unless Ole Miss helps them. and Ole Miss is too good right now. So I think we're gonna beat the Cox.
There you go. All right, and then at 6:30 on ABC, you've got Oklahoma at Tennessee, a top 20 matchup there, a playoff elimination game essentially. Whoever wins will stay alive. Whoever loses gets their third loss, and they will be out of the playoff hunt, or so we imagine. So Tennessee, a 2.5-point favorite in this one, total 55.5. Give me the Volunteers. I think this is going to be a great game. I think playing at Neyland is the difference here. Oklahoma just hasn't looked the same offensively since John Mateer got hurt and had to have hand surgery and has come back. Defensively, I think this could honestly be a lower scoring game at the end of it. But yeah, I think at home with Tennessee, Joey Aguilar's healthy. He's playing good football as well. I'll take the Vols.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I think last year's game against Oklahoma kind of opened a lot of people's eyes about Tennessee. Of okay, they can actually withstand the fist fight a little bit. You know, Nico, looking back on it, should have been, the representation of, all right, yeah, he's just not that good.
Yeah.
But then you had Dylan Sampson. Well, now Joey Aguilar, he kind of put that Alabama game behind him. Last week was Kentucky, but you've got to feel confident of that. All right, we can open this thing up. We can kind of get back to Tennessee of old. You get them at home. Oklahoma's kind of they're a desperate team. But I still don't think it's enough because of, like you said, John Mateer coming back, and it hasn't looked as flawless as it did early on in the season. So I think right now Tennessee's rolling, and the fact that they're at home, I think Josh Heupel gets another win over his alma mater.
All right, well, there you have it. Me and Damian both like the Vols in that big game coming up tomorrow night with Tennessee and Oklahoma. But, of course, we have one game left, Auburn and Kentucky at 6:30, and we will bring you that pick next, as well as get to your final score predictions. 205-834-9450 on the courtesy GMC text line. Me and Damian will give you our final thoughts on Auburn, Kentucky, and get to your final score predictions. That's next on JOX. 6:49. Welcome back into Morning Jocks here on your Friday morning. Hope everyone has a fantastic Halloween weekend, however it is that you are choosing to celebrate. As we put a bow on this, another great week of college football conversation, and hand you off to McElroy and Kubelik in the morning coming up at 7 o'clock. Quickly, happy birthday, a very special happy birthday to Nick Saban. He turned 74 years old today.
Oh, happy birthday, Coach.
The GOAT, as some people like to refer to him. So, yeah, happy birthday to Nick Saban, turned 74 years old today. And we have one more game left for us to get to today, Damien, where we have to deliver all of our picks for the weekend's biggest matchups. And we always like to leave Alabama and Auburn for last, and Alabama on bye week, obviously. So it's Auburn's time in the spotlight as they are hosting the Kentucky Wildcats at 6:30 tomorrow. That's going to be on the SEC network, which you can't watch if you have YouTube TV right now, as a reminder. But Auburn now, that line has moved up to 11.5 points for the Tigers at home, the over-under 44.5. I absolutely think Auburn wins this football game. I think they're a better team than Kentucky in just about every facet. It's at home. I think, again, right, the game against Arkansas last week, I understand the opponent, and maybe that's not impressive, but you found a way to win, and you found a way to overcome some adversity. And again, you reminded yourself how to win a football game. And I think that translates well. Auburn defensively has been absolutely fantastic for the majority of the year. Again, if you missed the stat yesterday, they've held 7 of 8 opponents to 10 points or more under their average scoring margin for the season. So I think Kentucky has a rough day offensively. I like the under in this game, but I certainly think Auburn's going to get the victory.
Yeah, I believe Auburn's defense is good enough to actually shut Kentucky out. Offensively, at this point, you are what you are, but you found some positive takeaways against Arkansas team last week. Jeremiah Cobb is a do-it-all back. He doesn't mind that if he has to carry it 20-plus times, you commit to it. And again, last year, this is where Jarquez Hunter almost ran for 300 yards on Kentucky.
Yeah.
You're the better football team. Go out there and show it. Simple as that. You can't look anemic on offense. Any sort of a pulse offensively, I think you put yourselves in a good spot, because defensively, I don't think Kentucky is good enough to just. Again, they want to run the football. Auburn is great at run defense. It just does not bode well if you put the ball in. Again, not to say Coder Bowley hasn't been good as of the past couple weeks, but again, he's not elite.
Yeah.
If he beats you, so be it. But it's going to be one of those things of Auburn's going to have to make a lot of mistakes to help out this Kentucky team. But I think pound for pound, there's just no way that this game shouldn't go in Auburn's favor. It shouldn't be, in Hugh Freeze quotes, close, in my opinion. I think it's one of those we're going to come away on Monday and talk about, okay, now Auburn, the rest of the schedule is going to be a little bit more difficult. Can you navigate it? Because you have handled your business against 2 of the worst teams in the SEC.
No, I think you're absolutely spot on in the sense this is not a game that it should not be close, right? This is a game where, because that's the thing with it being, around a 11, 12-point spread now. Like, I want to believe that Auburn's going to cover that because they should be able to cover that, right? I mean, it's all setting up well for you. This is a game, again, you probably have to win this game, A, if you're Hugh Freeze and want to coach next week, but B, if you want to make it to a bowl game, because not saying you can't beat Vanderbilt or Alabama, but do you really want to have to win one of those 2 games to determine if you get to a bowl game or if you're going 5-7? I don't think you want to have to do that. So, yeah, this should be an easy win for Auburn. Maybe not easy, but it should be a comfortable win for the Auburn Tigers. I'll say that. Let's see. This text rolling in says, also happy birthday to Brandon Cox, former Auburn quarterback. His birthday's today as well.
Okay.
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday, brother.
Didn't realize that. Happy birthday to him. Nick from North Birmingham, his score predictions for the weekend. He has Auburn 38, Kentucky 10. That's how it should look. We'll see if that's how it does look. That's how it should look. He says Vanderbilt 36, Texas 28. Texas 28, okay. Georgia 40, Florida 21. And Tennessee 34, Oklahoma 31.
Okay.
A lot of people picking that game really close. It should be a fantastic game with Tennessee and Oklahoma. Will chimes in. He says, if I don't get to watch my football on Saturday because of YouTube TV, I'm going to hurt myself like LSU has been doing this week.
Ouch.
It's been a rough week for them.
It has.
Let's see. This one says, do you think that all of the SEC games can be watched on the ESPN app? They should be.
They should. I believe so.
Yeah, if you have the... And that might be a workaround now, and that's something that, honestly, I could look into. But now that they have their own, I think it's like $30 a month, whatever, the ESPN streaming service, you might just be able to sign up for that. And maybe they even have a free trial if you get like a weekend for it or something like that, and hope that YouTube TV figures some things out. But yes, all the games should be available on the ESPN app. Let's see. Chad texts in. He says, Texas beats Vandy, Georgia beats Florida, Tennessee beats Oklahoma. He says, if Jackson Arnold plays, Auburn will win 24-17. If Ashton Daniels plays, Auburn will win 31-16.
Okay.
I like that. That's funny. Eric from Snead, he says, Auburn 31, Kentucky 17. Vanderbilt 35, Texas 31. Oklahoma 30, Tennessee 27. All right, somebody really is not sympathetic at all towards LSU. Teddy from Birmingham says, Auburn versus Kentucky, loser's going to get fired. They very well may. Very well may. Well, we appreciate you joining the show this morning. We're back Monday at 6. Mac and Cube is next.